Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Bradley. I am the Programming Senior Manager at Light Arts, and welcome to the info session for our 2023 studio residency. I will be joined for this info session by artist T. Elliott Mansa. T, if you want to hop on and say hello, feel free. And T is joining us actually from Ulight. So he is well equipped to answer all of the questions that I know you guys have for this info session. But before we get into some of his tips, tricks, and experiences about applying to the info session, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys some background information as to the application and what the studio residency actually provides. All right, so our studio residency is for visual artists working in all mediums. And the application is really short, really simple, and it's due by August 17th. So you have about a month left to apply. You can find the application online at ulightarts.org. And it's a submittable application, so you will need to create a submittable account in order to apply. But our Ulight Arts Studio Residency offers studio space at our Miami Beach location, which is on Lincoln Road, to exceptional visual artists working in a range of disciplines. In addition to engaging with a community of artists, curators, arts professionals, and institutional partners in Miami, Ulight Arts residents are provided the space from which to develop their practice, and they're invited to actively participate in Ulight Arts programs such as exhibitions, public programming, studio visits, and our community outreach initiative, which we'll touch on a few of those, I'm sure, T, when we talk to you later about your experience and your residency thus far. Eligibility and requirements. So if you are an artist who's in need of space and time to develop your practice and you're committed to actively engaging in Ulight Arts programming, this is the application for you. We do want artists to utilize their studios. So if you're able to commit to working in your studio at least 12 to 15 hours a week, of course, you'll have 24-hour access, so you can use it as much as you like. And you have the ability to commit in participating in exhibitions, public programming, studio visits, and our community outreach initiatives. So part of the Ulight residency, we do an annual Artists in Residence exhibition, which currently we have Lean To, that's curated by Leilani Lynch, up in our gallery, which is from our 2022 studio residence. So if any of you are in Miami right now and want to see what one of those exhibitions look like, you can visit Ulight any day from 12 to 5, and the galleries are open. We also do invite curators to come and do studio visits. We have a bunch of public programming opportunities. And also, I think most importantly, as a part of our residency, is you're an artist who wants to engage with other artists in Miami's community. We do have 14 studios. You'll be amongst a group of 14. We also have a cinematic arts program. So there are filmmakers who also share studio space in residence. So there's a lot of knowledge sharing, drop-in studio visits, and conversation amongst the arts community at Ulight. Now, what you need to apply. So with any application, it'll be your full contact information. For this application, we are asking for a short statement of intent. And this, I think T will mention a little bit of what his intention was with his residency, but really it's like, what is it that drew you to Ulight? Why is this the residency for you? What do you want to do with the year in residence, with space? What are you hoping to achieve with having a studio space for a year, with being a part of an arts community, with the access that Ulight can grant you? And then a brief description of your practice. So this could be a combination of a statement and bio, a CV or resume. And then we ask for up to 10 work samples. This can be either 10 images, 10 pages of written material, or 10 videos. It can also be a combination of the 3 types of material, but just make sure that you submit no more than 10. And then for the studio residency, we're also asking for 3 references. So this is not reference letters, but just contact information of 3 people in the community that can speak to you professionally as an artist. And for the good stuff. So I am honored to be joined by T. Elliott Mansa, who is a current artist in residence and who's been with us for the last few years. So he can really speak to his experience as a whole, being an artist in residence at Ulight and all the opportunities that have come his way. So T. Elliott Mansa has developed an assemblage practice that incorporates materials from roadside memorials, applying ritual practices from West African, Caribbean, and Southern religious and vernacular sculptural traditions. He's interested in questioning the efficacy of political art making and looks to approach apotropaic art making practices and creates with a conceit of creating a ritual practice to honor, memorialize, protect, and defend Black lives from state and extrajudicial violence. So T, I'm going to welcome you to the screen. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
And I want to get started, and I'll kick it off with a question, and I hope that the audience, you guys will use the Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom screen to submit any questions that you have for either me or T, whether it's about the application or the experience. But T, can we start off with talking a little bit about the application process and how you approached it?
Sure. For my application, I basically did 3 paragraphs. One was what about Oolite interests me, and why I was applying specifically for this program. The second paragraph was me describing the artwork that I planned on making. And the third paragraph was basically, what makes me a good fit, what my background is, what, some of my recent experiences with shows, etc.
And that was for your letter of intent portion, right?
Yeah.
For the application. And so how did you learn about Oolite when you were applying? How did you find your way to that application?
I'd been, I had been coming, visiting friends. I was kind of in the loop with the social media presence. So I want to say that the application dates and everything like that, I was made aware of by social media, but it just Oolite in general, I've been coming to the open studios, been coming to the opening, so I was pretty familiar with it.
And what was your expectation in applying to the studio? Were you like primarily looking for studio space? Were you trying to be a part of a community? Like, what were your kind of initial ideas going into it?
I was pretty not fresh out of grad school, but I hadn't been in Miami long, so I definitely was looking for a studio space. That's really what I was thinking of as far as what initially I was thinking about when I applied.
And so now, having been in residence for at least for the 2 years, what are some of the takeaways that you've had that were kind of unexpected about the residency?
Well, like I said, originally I'd really been thinking about having a space to work, but one of the things that really didn't take me long to realize was the way that Oolite supports artists. So, for example, there's always going to be an email that is giving you information about something to apply for. Also, whenever there is a curator or historian or someone who wants to do studio visits, maybe an art consultant, different people that come through, I also would get those emails trying to see if I was available. I've been in maybe 3 shows here, including 2 group shows and 1 solo exhibit at Art and Culture Center Hollywood. So also like being able to apply for grants and also apply for the home and away residency. So I was able to do one of those. So there was just a lot more, and also more than anything, the experience of working closely with artists who some I'm familiar with, but many I wasn't familiar with, and like made new friendships because of that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go to audience questions in a little bit. So if any of you artists who are signed in who have a burning question about your application, please don't be shy to submit. This is a very casual info session that really just gives you access to one of our resident artists and the people who work behind the scenes to make the residency possible. So I really encourage, if you have any questions, to submit it. If you don't necessarily want to submit your question publicly, we can drop the email that you can send questions to in the chat, where you can submit it privately. But I really do think that you guys can get the most out of probably talking to one of our resident artists. But I wanted to touch a little bit more on that, T, is like that relationships amongst the artist community, because I get to see you, Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
And I would say that you're probably one of the most active in the sense of, popping into other people's studios and asking for advice and really engaging. So can you talk a little bit about like what that kind of community feels like? I think both publicly, we do have open studios and we do have exhibitions, but I think privately amongst you guys as artists, like there are just like really great relationships that happen over the 2-year span, being such a small group.
Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the things that really I enjoy personally, some of the conversations talking about work, talking about the things that we're trying to explore in the work. And I think some of those conversations are things that you may not get outside of a community of artists, might have a conversation about like the surface of a painting and just like really small things and how that's linked to other work and or like the difference between figures that are facing the viewer and turn, just these small things that we talk about. And also opportunities. There might be some opportunity that someone is aware of and they're more than happy to pass that info along. So that's something that happens amongst the residents. But yeah, really, I mean, also you might want insight, like a loose, I don't want to say a crit, but you might want input on a work, or just someone to talk to when you're a little uncertain about where you fit in the community and in the wider art world, like moments of insecurities, having someone to support you.
Yeah, and I can echo, I think, a little bit of that aspect of family. I think that there's a really nice thing that happens when the community is small, like 14. And over a 2-year span, you really do get to know one another. I know everyone has their day jobs and their own practice, and everyone's working in different mediums, but that knowledge sharing that can happen from a sculptor to a photographer, but a sculptor needs to make a print, there is a lot of access to that kind of mind sharing that happens. There's also the occasional karaoke party that happens between residents. But we are getting some questions in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and take some, and T, you'll help me kind of direct these. Laura asks, what kind of things do we have access to in the facility? Is there a wood shop, darkroom, etc.? So we do have a fully accessible print shop, which means printmaking facilities. We have an exposure unit to do screen printing. We can do all types of printmaking. We have a large format printer where you can do digital printing. We also have a 3D printer. So there are access to facilities. We don't have a photography darkroom, and we don't have a wood shop, but we do have a fully developed print shop. We also have a print shop resident who can help if you're interested in getting, getting to know what printmaking is and different techniques. They are accessible to you as a resident. You can use that space as often or as little as you want. And we do have a resident in charge of the large format printer as well that's very accustomed to using it. So if you do have a print job coming up that you need help on and you don't quite know how to work it, we can have the resources and access to get what you need done. Rosemary says, thanks for this info. Thanks to Elliot for sharing. My question, can you describe the facilities, large format printer, print shop, and equipment? So I think I just touched on that, but Rosemary, if you have more specific questions as to equipment, feel free to drop another question in the chat for the Q&A. I have a question from Catherine in the chat. Is it okay or not really recommended to send drafts of future work plans we'd make in the studio in the image submission portion? See, maybe I'll let you handle this one. I'm not quite sure what you submitted, but I think my thinking on the admin side would be, I think this application really calls to see where you're at in your practice. And I think the letter of intent is really where you can describe like what your intention is for the year. But maybe T, what did you submit?
Well, yeah, I talked about the work, not explicitly like the physical aspects of what I wanted to make, but what I wanted to explore. What were some of the ideas that I've been kicking around in my head, and talking a little bit about like some of what I plan to make and how that was tied to the concepts I was exploring. But like I think from my seeing other artists, sometimes like I've seen people who are doing three-dimensional work who want to have a space where they can do print, and they can do some 2D stuff. People that kind of have an idea of a body of work that they want to do, that it's a good fit for the facilities that we have here.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. There's, I think, artists that are sculptors, and you can speak to this because your work ranges in size, and you've figured out a way to make different variations of size of studio space and the spaces we have available work to you, because I know you also use aerosols a lot in your work. And I think that one thing that is nice about the space is like, if there's a question you have as to like what you can do, we can always answer it. And if we can't provide you the space that you need to do something, I'm sure one of us, whether it be the artist or someone in the office, knows someone who can, connect you to maybe finding a space where you can cut a piece of wood or something like that. So we'll definitely try to accommodate to the best of our ability. And I'm sure T can explain a little bit more about how he's adapted and made his practice work in that sense, because it is quite large, as you can see in his photo on the screen. But we'll move ahead to some more questions. So are there any fees that we would have to pay for Ms. T? So the studio space it's a free studio for a year, and the term is from January to December, and you're up for renewal for a second year. So it would be a max of 2 years, but it is a free studio space. Once you get accepted and you agree, you will have to just put a security deposit for the space, which you get returned once you complete, an exit survey at the end of the residency. But other than that, we don't ask for funds from our artists. Okay, Sebastian sent a bunch of questions, so we'll go ahead and take them one by one. Is this open to all artists in stages of their career? Yes. You can apply at any stage of your career. Our jury is comprised of curators and arts professionals in the community. It's not juried by ULITE staff, so our jury changes every year. So also, if you're tuned in and you've applied before, I encourage you to apply again. Doesn't mean just because you've gotten rejected one year that you will a second time. Is it better to propose a specific project? I don't necessarily think so. I don't think that this application is really geared towards project proposal. I think that would be more suited for like our Ellie's application. This is really, who are you as an artist and what could a space at Ulite do for you, I would say. You agree, T?
Yeah.
What kind of programming occurs? I think we've touched on a little bit of this. So we have an annual, resident artist exhibition that we invite a curator to curate every year. So if you're there for 2 years, that's at least 2 exhibitions. Also, I will say once you've been an artist in resident with us, then you become an alum after your term is up. And there's also a plethora of alumni opportunities that will come your way. So whether it's within the 2 years that you're in residence or after you've left Ulite, you're always going to be a part of the Ulite family, and we will always constantly have touch base points either through projects or opportunities that we reach out to you with. And this one's directly for you, T. So T. Elliott, how has this residency helped you connect to the greater Miami art scene?
Well, we have several open studio. Kind of has varied due to COVID. As things have opened up, we've had more in-person studios. We also had some virtual things. Also, the Ulite staff kind of keeps us alert with different curators and individuals that we might want to kind of get familiar with, have studio visits with. So that's a big part of it. And also thinking about where there are opportunities for Ulite to support you as an artist. So that might be projects that you want to exhibit, various things that you can apply for. So it's not just one thing, and it also isn't necessarily just local. You might like we had studio visits with one of the curators from the Whitney, who was one of the curators of the Whitney Biennial. So that type of exposure is something that people want nationwide. So yes, there are exposure in the local art scene, but it's more than that also.
Yeah. Peter asks, you need to have an art degree to be part of the residency. Not necessarily. I think artists come in all shapes, sizes, and at different stages of their career. We do ask for some sort of CV, so you will have to put one of those together. And if any of you logged on have seen any of our programs in the skills, we do have on our YouTube channel a playlist of how to apply, what to include in the CV, what to include in a project description, so you can reference some of those professional development workshops we've given in the past about what it is to put an application together, but definitely does not exclude you if you don't have a formal degree in art. Is the program for 1 or 2 years? So the residency is a max of 2 years, but essentially you're admitted for the first year and then you're up for renewal at the end of the year. So you will sign on with a lease for 1 year, and then it'll be whether or not it's renewed for a second year, but it's a maximum of 2 years. What qualities are you looking for in the letter of intent? What makes an ideal candidate? Dun, dun, dun. The big question. I would say, a letter of intent, and if we're looking at it from the perspective of, a community of curators and arts professionals who are reading applications, is you'd really want to read something that shows that this person knows what they're applying for, number one, which is, do you know what Ulite is? Is the space going to suit your studio practice? Do you have a plan for the year? Can you really make the most out of your time there? And how important maybe are the resources that we can provide to your practice or to elevating your practice? But T, I'll let you kind of chime in on this one too.
Yeah, I think being familiar with what Ulight does and what your needs are. I think you should know what you need in the moment, what type of support you need, and maybe kind of keep yourself aware of what the track record is as far as the artists who have who've been there. Maybe some of the things that you'd like to see yourself within, like some of your goals.
Yeah, definitely. I would say the letter of intent should be specific enough to understanding what it is you're applying to, and also like we really, I think, want to see like why are you applying to an Elite Arts residency? Like, what is it really going to do for you? What is your intention to be a part of the arts community? And then I have a question from Christoph. Is there some kind of income limit to apply, or might a well-to-do person still have access? We don't ask any income questions, so you can apply. And I have a question from Anonymous. What is the difference between the cinematic arts residency and studio residency? If filmmaking is a part of your practice, could you apply to the studio residency? I would say, of course, you can be an artist who works in film as well. There are many, artists who have studio practices that are filmmakers. The cinematic arts residency is specific to creating your first feature film, and it's a stipend-based application. That application will open in early September, and you can find more information out about that on our website. But that is specific to a proposed feature-length film project. Of course, if you are a studio resident and you have a filmmaking practice, it's a double whammy for you because you have access to 5 other filmmakers who you can talk film with. But the studio residency should really be focused on some sort of studio practice. Another question, if some artwork is being purchased during the residency, how much is being kept by Ulite? We don't keep any. We don't ask artists. We don't have those conversations with outsiders. Artists are free to do whatever they do in their studio. If you have a show at Ulite, all the money goes to you. We direct them directly to the artist. We're not interested in taking any sort of percentage or commission from artist sales. I don't know if you can speak to maybe your experience. I don't know if you sold anything at an open studio or had people inquire via some sort of exhibition or something that was Ulite related, but I also know that you have a gallery, so I don't know if this applies necessarily.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good question because people have different experiences with different art organizations. So that is something that you want to be aware of. But yeah, if anything, it's more like, I don't think there is that kind of idea that like there's like some financial benefit that Ulite is looking for you. If not, like you might be hearing about grants or you might be hearing about other things. When we had, during COVID, there was a time where there were grants that were eligible for artists. So there were these opportunities of support. So it was, yes, from my experience, Ulite is trying to provide opportunities for you versus have you be a means of generating income.
100% agree. And that leads me to another question, which is, do all artists maintain all IP rights? 100%. Like T said, I mean, we're a nonprofit arts organization. Our mission is really to support artists through and through. If you look at, and if this is your first introduction to Ulite and the first time you're really learning about who we are, all of our programs are geared towards supporting artists in some way, whether that be through space, whether that be through taking them to another residency out of town and expanding their network, whether that be through funding an arts project. We 100% are really just looking to support artists in all the facets that they could possibly need to be supported. So I hope that answers that question. I missed what you said about references. Is it just their contact info? Yes, you only have to provide contact info for your references. We don't ask for letters of recommendation. Can your 3 references consist of other artists? They can. I would say just choose someone who can really speak to you on a professional basis, like whether it's another artist you collaborated with or did a big project, or maybe you studio assisted for, or in some capacity have they worked with you enough to be able to speak to you professionally. I don't know, T, what kind of people did you use as your references? Because I think that this is a question that people sometimes worry about too, because I do it myself, is like, who do I use as my reference for this application? What would be your suggestion?
Maybe a professor, maybe, a curator, collector. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good, it's a good thing to maintain relationships. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would recommend using like people who are primarily your friends. Not that you wouldn't, because that might be someone that you collaborate with, that you work with closely. And sometimes artists are good people to pick because they might be aware of what your output is like, what your habits are as far as like being able to, like, are you going to be someone who is going to be in the studio? Things like that. And that might be something that you only are going to really hear from another artist who's worked with you in the past.
Yeah, definitely someone who I guess knows you in different facets. Like, I definitely don't think he's your best friend, because obviously your best friend's going to say great things, but can this person speak about you via some sort of project, or like he said, like maybe it's a collector who's been following your work for years and has seen your progression as an artist, but can they really speak to you as an artist in the community and your kind of trajectory, your intention? What if you have to be out of town for a couple months? Studio remains accessible, of course. So our artists all have mostly day jobs. Some of them have kids. Everyone's at a different stage in their life, and we're not necessarily requiring artists to be in the space from 9 to 5, but we do want the studio to be used. I mean, we want to grant artists who are going to use the studio space and who really are going to make the most of the time that they have. We do have quarterly open studios, and we do ask that all of our artists attend those, and those typically coincide with exhibition openings. So 4 times a year, we'll say, hey, we want everyone here. Let's open the entire building and let's let hundreds of people in to see all the great work you've done. So there are some events that we really do, require, but encourage artists to be at. Obviously, some people have exhibitions out of state and are doing, other things. So 100% if you need to travel, that's fine. T can probably talk a little bit more about this, but I mean, there is really a lot of close contact with the ULED Arts staff, I think, when you're in residence, because we are somewhat a really big family. Everyone on staff knows all of our artists through and through. We know each other's practices. We talk about art. We talk about life. We talk about studio issues. Artists feel comfortable, coming in and asking for things, or asking for help, or asking for references for things. But really, anything you don't know and anything we can't necessarily answer here, or when you're in residence, I promise there's someone who can answer your questions somewhere on the back end of everything. I have another question, Sebastian, regarding the print studio. What supplies are provided? Ink, solvents, rags, acid, and what would we need to provide? So Sebastian, I would say if you have a particular type of printmaking that you're looking to kind of see if we have access to do, you can go ahead and send me an email, and I can check with our print shop resident to get you more information. But if you go on our website, there is a print shop webpage, and it should tell you what we have in the facilities. But anything that is more specific to your practice that you want to ask, I can get answered, and I can send you an answer via email. How many studios will you have available? So obviously our residency is small. We have 14 artists and residents at any one time, and about half leave the studio space on a year because there's kind of a rollover. So I would say we'd have about half of those studios available. So it is quite a competitive application. So I encourage anyone who really wants to chat a little bit more about maybe their specific letter of intent, and if they have, questions on what they should submit as artworks or references, to schedule office hours with me. I believe my colleague dropped the links in the chat. We can schedule 15-minute one-on-one Zoom calls. I have 2 dates, which I'll also show on screen for you guys, on July 26th and also August 12th, which is about a week before the application will close. One more question. You do not need a letter of recommendation. We just need contact information. And how many studios will be up for renewal? About half of 14, so about 7. Don't quote me on that, but it's usually about half per year. And that's my email. So I don't know if anyone has more questions. When is the next Zoom? The next info session is August 1st. And it'll be another Zoom webinar. So if you want to join the second one, we'll be talking with resident artist Chris Friday. And this is the deadline to apply, which is the most important thing. Just make the deadline. August 17th at 6 p.m., not midnight, 6 p.m. The application is accessible on our website. You do need a submittable account. So if you don't have a submittable account, definitely take a look at the application, set one up in advance. But applications are due August 17th. And we'll give it one more minute if anyone has any last questions. But I thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know Mondays are hard. Zoom is hard now. Everyone wants to meet in person, but I hope that this was super informative. I really hope that all of you that tuned in will apply. Feel free to send me an email with any questions that didn't get answered, or if you have specific questions, schedule those office hours, look on our website, call us, whatever, pick your poison. But we're really excited to be launching our studio residency application. Thank you so much, T. Elliott, for joining me and sharing all your insight and background to what it is to be an Oolite resident. And if any of you are interested and in Miami, go check out Lean 2, which is on view now in our 924 gallery. It's open Monday through Sunday from 12 to 5, and it's our current studio resident group exhibition curated by Leilani Lynch. And thanks, everyone. We'll go ahead and say goodnight.